Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi lays wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Moscow, addresses the Indian diaspora in Moscow, announces 2 new Indian consulates at Kazan and Yekaterinburg. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to travel to Austria after concluding his Russia visit. It will be an Indian Prime Minister's first visit to Vienna in 4 decades. US President Joe Biden to host NATO's 75th anniversary summit in Washington, D.C. Kremlin says it will closely follow the summit. And in sports, Euro 2024 to see a high-voltage clash as a 3-time winner Spain takes on France for a spot in the final. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi today laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Moscow. The war memorial is dedicated to the soldiers who laid their lives in the Second World War. Located at the Kremlin Hall in the Alexander Garden in Moscow, the tomb houses the remains of the soldiers who were killed in the 1941 and 1945 War of Moscow fighting the German forces. The memorial hosts a special guard of honor to the Kremlin regiment. So DD India's Jessica Taneja joins us live on the story now. Jessica, take us through Prime Minister Narendra Modi's engagement. I believe he's touring the Atom Pavilion as of now.
That's correct, Tanvi, and that's where I am as well. The Prime Minister, along with Russian President Vladimir Putin, just crossed the pavilion right behind me there. And they are on the first floor, I believe, and also they'll be meeting both Indian and Russian students and interacting with them, trying to understand the interesting projects they're working on. Both the leaders met, as you recall, yesterday evening. Now, crucial to mention why the Atom Pavilion was chosen as an exhibition for the Prime Minister to arrive here and being escorted by none other than Russia's atomic energy chief, who is with the Prime Minister along with the Russian President inside, looking at the various aspects in the historical achievements of the Soviet Union in the nuclear energy field. And not to forget to mention that India and Russia have collaborated on the nuclear energy front quite a bit, believing in a peaceful atom. So look at how this relationship has moved forward. We already have 2 nuclear power plants operational in Kundakalam, something that was decided and cemented in early 2000s. And we're looking at the 3rd and the 4th nuclear reactor power plant, also going to begin operations, and the 4th, the 5th and the 6th are under construction as well, and more in the talks. So, of course, interestingly, both the leaders have met today to understand what further can be done in terms of cooperation in the nuclear field.
All right. And also take us through the remainder of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's engagements in Moscow today, Jessica.
Well, after this, the Prime Minister will head to Kremlin for delegation-level talks. Of course, more further engagements with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. We will probably by late afternoon get details on the kind of MOUs that have been signed, the deals that have been cemented, particularly focusing on the economic agenda. And as you recall, Tanvi, it's been 3 years the 2 leaders have met and have had extensive talks to sort of understand what all areas need a consistent momentum moving forward, and economy, particularly the trade, the economic side of the relationship has been on focus. Also, this visit has given a moment to both the leaders to reflect on, the vision of this relationship and how to enhance it further. Remember, this is the 22nd annual summit between the two, between India and Russia. And this is crucial because India, of course, and Russia share historic ties. But beyond that, the focus consistently does remain on defense and energy. But this time it is also about looking at the trade imbalance and making.
Okay, Jessica Taneja reporting there from Moscow. Well, a lot has happened during the day. Prime Minister Narendra Modi earlier laid the wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Moscow. And right now he is touring the Atom Pavilion. Both India and Russia have collaborated on the prospect of peaceful atom. This is in the field of nuclear energy. Let's try and connect with Jessica Taneja. Jessica, are you with us? Yes. So, Jessica,
Yes.
You were telling us about the engagements of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's, broadly speaking, what would you say was the significance of the meeting earlier yesterday between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin?
Well, the two leaders, as you recall the words of Russian President when he visited India in 2021, he said it's a time to test of friendship. Moscow and New Delhi work together in both technical and military sphere like no other country, and that has particularly resonated over the years as well. Those are the ties that are being reinforced, and not to forget that India and Russia hope for a multipolar world. At the same time, India has been able to put its point forward and said that when it comes to the conflict with Ukraine and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it has said that solution cannot be found in the battlefield, and India wants to continuously stress on that aspect as well, even though the focus remains on how to diversify economic trade. But of course, the geopolitical climate cannot be ignored at this point, and India has made sure that it does put its point forward, which it has been reinstating, and that is to resolve this while having both sides on the table and also ensuring that there is the solution is not found on battlefield, but rather through dialogue and diplomacy. So we're hoping that the conversation continues and hope for more, hope for the joint statement towards the afternoon where we get to know what kind of deals have been signed and what all MOUs are we expecting towards the evening. There's also talks of joint development of technology and looking at sectors like pharmaceuticals, textiles, as I was pointing out, even railways. So let's hope and wait, Tanvi, for that joint communique to see what exactly is in store going ahead for the two in terms of their economic relationship, which is the focus of this visit primarily.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much, Jessica. We'll come back to you as the day progresses and more engagements, as you mentioned, are lined up for the day. Thank you very much. Jessica Taneja reporting from Moscow. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi earlier addressed the Indian diaspora in Moscow. He thanked the Indian community in Moscow for a warm reception, reminding them that July 9th marks 1 month since his inauguration for a third consecutive term. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that he has vowed to work 3 times faster and with 3 times more strength in his third term.
अपने तीसरे टर्म में मैं 3 गुनी ताकत से काम करूंगा। और ये भी एक संयोग है कि सरकार के कई लक्ष्यों में भी 3 का अंक छाया हुआ है। सरकार का लक्ष्य है तीसरे टर्म में भारत को दुनिया की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी इकोनॉमी बनाना। सरकार का लक्ष्य है तीसरे टर्म में गरीबों के लिए 3 करोड़ आवास बनाना, 3 करोड़ घर बनाना। सरकार का लक्ष्य है तीसरे टर्म में 3 करोड़ लखपति दीदी बनाना।
The Indian Prime Minister said that the world is amazed by the speed of development in India over the last decade. He said that India is changing because it believes in the ability of its 1.4 billion people.
आने वाले 10 साल और भी फास्ट ग्रोथ के होने वाले हैं। सेमीकंडक्टर से इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग तक, ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन से इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल तक और वर्ल्ड क्लास इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, भारत की नई गति दुनिया के विकास का, और मैं बहुत जिम्मेवारी से कह रहा हूं, दुनिया के विकास का अध्याय लिखेगी। आज ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी की ग्रोथ में 15% भारत कंट्रीब्यूट कर रही है।
The Indian Prime Minister further said that India and Russia are working shoulder to shoulder to give new energy to global prosperity and that Russia is India's trusted friend.
मुझे खुशी है कि ग्लोबल प्रॉस्पेरिटी को नई ऊर्जा देने के लिए भारत और रूस कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर चल रहे हैं। यहां मौजूद आप सभी लोग भारत और रूस के संबंधों को और नई ऊंचाई दे रहे हैं। आपने अपनी मेहनत से, अपनी ईमानदारी से रूस के समाज में अपना योगदान दिया है। साथियों, मैं दशकों से भारत और रूस के बीच जो अनोखा रिश्ता है उसका कायल रहा हूं। रूस शब्द सुनते ही हर भारतीय के मन में पहला शब्द आता है भारत के सुख दुख का साथी। भारत का भरोसेमंद दोस्त।
And at this event, the Prime Minister of India also announced the opening of 2 new Indian consulates at Kazan and Yekaterinburg.
कजान और युकातेरिनबुर्ग में 2 नए कॉन्सुलेट खोलने का निर्णय लिया गया है। इससे आना जाना और व्यापार कारोबार और आसान होगा। साथियों, हमारे संबंधों का एक प्रतीक अस्त्राखान का इंडिया हाउस भी है। 17वीं शताब्दी में गुजरात के व्यापारी वहां बसे थे। 2 साल पहले नॉर्थ साउथ ट्रांसपोर्ट कॉरिडोर से पहला कॉमर्शियल कंसाइनमेंट भी यहां पहुंचा। ये कॉरिडोर मुंबई और अस्त्राखान की पोर्ट सिटी को आपस में जोड़ता है। अब हम चेन्नई, व्लादिवोस्तोक ईस्टर्न मैरीटाइम कॉरिडोर पर भी काम कर रहे हैं।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will co-chair the 22nd annual summit between India and Russia with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow today. The summit will provide an opportunity for both the leaders to review the full spectrum of bilateral issues, including that of defense, trade, investment, energy, cooperation, science and technology, education, culture, and people-to-people exchanges. The two leaders will also share perspectives on regional and global developments of mutual interest. The Prime Minister will also have a restricted one-on-one meeting at the Kremlin with Vladimir Putin, which will set the stage for delegation-level talks. You're watching DD India News Hour, still to come on the show. NATO likely to pledge its unwavering support for Ukraine as its leaders meet in Washington, D.C. UK's Parliament reconvenes later on Tuesday for the first time since the last week's election. And the Islamic militant group Hamas says that Israel's latest military operations in Gaza could jeopardize ceasefire talks. We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also visit Austrian capital Vienna after concluding his Russia trip. The last time an Indian Prime Minister went to Austria was over 40 years ago. Although India and Austria have been friends for 75 years, with extensive trade, technology, sustainable development and people-to-people ties. The Prime Minister will also be interacting with the 31,000-strong Indian diaspora in Austria to further strengthen relations with a key European nation. DD India's Gautam Roy reports from Vienna.
India-Austria ties go back 75 years. They both share common values such as democratic principles and pluralism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Austria on Tuesday and Wednesday, where he'll call on President Alexander von der Bellen and hold delegation-level talks with his counterpart, Federal Chancellor Karl Nehammer. In his departure statement, the PM said, "I look forward to my discussions to take our partnership to even greater heights in new and emerging areas of innovation, technology and sustainable development, among others. Together with the Austrian Chancellor, I look forward to exchanging views with business leaders from both sides to explore mutually beneficial trade and investment opportunities." Austria has a multicultural society with over 31,000 strong Indian diaspora. The PM will also be interacting with them during his visit, which is a much-awaited event for the members of the Indian community.
Everyone is looking forward to meet Prime Minister Modi ji, and it's after a long time that an Indian Prime Minister is coming to Austria, and he has done a lot for the foreign politics and helped a lot for the economic growth and everything. So everyone is looking forward.
Indian diaspora, especially the students and researcher, the subgroup I belong to, is very excited for Prime Minister Modi's visit to Austria. We are looking forward to it, and I am pretty much excited to see how the socio-economical and cultural aspects play forward from this point onwards.
India and Austria have extensive relations from infrastructure, technology to sustainable development. Trade is well balanced, around $3 billion each year. Indian exports to Austria stand at $1.52 billion. Imports from Austria stand at $1.41 billion. Indian investments in Austria amount to over $1 billion. Austrian investments in India are at over $800 million. Austria offers opportunities for collaboration in multiple fields, ranging from infrastructure, renewable energy to startups. India and Austria Startup Bridge was launched in February 2024. 20 plus Indian startups went to Austria in June this year to participate in a startup event. India and Austria have also inked a landmark Comprehensive Migration and Mobility Agreement in May 2024. India and Austria have been friends for 75 years, and a gap of over 40 years will be filled by the visit of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Austria and when these two leaders meet. There's a 31,000 strong Indian community as well who've been looking forward to interact and meet the Prime Minister, and all these events will take the relationship between India and Austria forward into the future, be it in trade, tech or sustainable development. With Camera Person Pramod Negi, Gautam Roy in Vienna, Austria for DD India.
The Indian Prime Minister's visit to Austria is a much-awaited trip because the last such prime ministerial visit to this key European nation took place over 4 decades ago. India already has a special place in the hearts of many Austrians and other nationalities who have made it their home over the years, including the Indian diaspora. Gautam Roy tells you why in our next report.
Be it yoga, Ayurveda or traditional art and culture like Bharatanatyam, India has had a special place due to its soft power in distant lands for centuries. Radha Anjali, her given name by her Indian guru, is of Austrian parentage, married to an Iranian and running a Bharatanatyam school, Natya Mandir, in Austria's capital Vienna since the 80s. She says, as India has been gaining global prominence in recent years, interest in its art, culture and traditions has also been growing.
Performed almost all over Europe and in India, and well, I'm dancing the last maybe 45 years. Many years before, Indian culture was very much unknown, and during the last 10-20 years it is much more prominent.
Radha Anjali's students in Vienna come from different parts of the world as they are drawn to India's mesmerizing dance forms and classical music, apart from those with Indian origins looking to remain connected with their roots.
Born in India, in Rajasthan actually, and just so we were quite disconnected from our culture originally, and it's a very good way to reconnect and to actually know more in detail what's the Indian culture all about.
I was always mesmerized by it, and I also grew up watching Bollywood and dance videos when I was in Bangladesh and also here, so it kind of was in me to like these kind of dances.
I did yoga, a lot of yoga. I did my study in yoga at yoga teacher, and I were in Indian, and it was for me completely wow, Bharatanatyam.
I did Bharatanatyam a bit when I was a child in Sri Lanka, and I took a break due to a number of reasons. And after coming to Vienna, I wanted to get back to dancing. I was doing a bit of African dancing, but I felt that I needed to get back to Bharatanatyam. It just feels more connected.
As India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits Austria, it's only natural for all things Indian to figure even more prominently in the host country, leading to more awareness, interactions and proximities between the two cultures and people. India has always had deep wells of art, culture and traditional knowledge to draw from for any individual from any part of the world. But with rising consciousness about India, its economic prowess or even the capabilities of its individuals, there are imprints of India now all over the world, and Austria is no stranger to it. With Camera Person Pramod Negi, Gautam Roy in Vienna for DD India.
On to the Americas now. The NATO summit starts in Washington, D.C., North America on Tuesday, with heads of state from 32 member nations and other partners gathering to discuss defense strategy. It's a historic summit, 75 years since the North Atlantic Treaty Organization was formed in the aftermath of the Second World War. The war in Ukraine is going to be at the top of the agenda, with a wider threat of Russia as it gets more support from the likes of China and North Korea being of increasing concern. DD India's Caroline Malone reports from Washington, D.C.
The fighting rages on in Ukraine 2.5 years since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. A war that's now killed hundreds of thousands of people and created wider insecurity. As the leaders of 32 NATO countries and their partners meet in the US capital, Ukraine continues to push for membership.
the alliance will agree on a bridge to membership for Ukraine into NATO. What this means is that Ukraine will continue making the reforms that it needs to make and that it is committed to make as part of its annual plan with NATO, as well as with other agreements, and that in that context, we see its movement toward the alliance as is irreversible, effectively.
US officials have said there will be sessions with partners Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand to discuss the support Russia gets from Iran, North Korea and China.
Some think that NATO should have a presence in the Indo-Pacific to really push back against Chinese aggression and Chinese expansionism, while some people think that NATO should focus closer to home, get the Russian.
So we're going to Moscow again, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi was visiting the nuclear exhibition of the Atom Pavilion there. Here we can see on our screens Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This complex at the Rosatom is testament of Russia's progress in nuclear energy, and Atom Pavilion is an exhibition and educational complex. It is dedicated to nuclear energy. It highlights the achievements of the Soviet Union in the nuclear energy field till the modern age. Prime Minister Narendra Modi witnessing Russia's nuclear technology advancements, cooperation between India and Russia in the use of peaceful atom. And this cooperation in peaceful atom is strategic and time-tested between India and Russia. Well, the Atom Pavilion is an exhibition and educational complex with the largest and most up-to-date display in Russia dedicated to nuclear energy. So, Prime Minister Narendra Modi going through this Atom Pavilion in Moscow with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This museum, interestingly and clearly, shows the development of nuclear industry in Russia, and the location is very much logical. The history of the main discovery is begin from the lower floors with the exhibitions of Soviet atomic project and time of the first on the first floor, and the development plans of Russia's further nuclear programs on the upper floors. So there we see Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India and Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Rosatom Atom Pavilion, this exhibition on nuclear energy in Moscow. And from here onwards, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will head to Kremlin for the restricted level talks and the delegation level talks that are slotted for later today. So this was after laying the wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Moscow, and right now Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting this Rosatom Pavilion at the exhibition venue with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Clearly interesting visuals there. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his trip to Russia has a lot of bilateral engagements expected ahead in the day, and this is the largest and most up-to-date display in Russia dedicated to nuclear energy. If we could give you a little bit more background on the nuclear cooperation between India and Russia. India was one of the first countries to realize the prospects of peaceful atom. The Atomic Energy Commission of India was established in 1948. An intergovernmental agreement on the construction of Kudankulam nuclear power project was signed on November 20th, 1988 between the government of the then USSR and the government of India. Mikhail Gorbachev then signed the agreement on behalf of the Soviet Union, and former Prime Minister of India Rajiv Gandhi signed it on behalf of India. So there is a great potential for cooperation in the field of nuclear energy, land-based and nuclear power units and floating small nuclear power plants, nuclear fuel cycle, science and technology, and non-energy applications of nuclear technology. Definitely that's going to be on the agenda as far as this visit is concerned. Prime Minister Narendra Modi right now being briefed by the guides there at the Atom Pavilion in Moscow. This is the Rosatom Pavilion to be particular here, and we also see on our screens First Deputy Prime Minister of Russia as well accompanying this delegation. And of course the achievements of Soviet Union in the nuclear energy field are displayed in this complex, and it's a very diverse complex ranging from the underground floors, and the achievements which are yet to happen are displayed on the upper floors. So new consulates in Kazan and Yekaterinburg have also been announced during this visit, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi also laid a wreath earlier at the tomb of the unknown soldier, and addressing the event, the community event earlier, Prime Minister Modi portrayed India as a Vishwa Bandhu or friend to the world, asserting that the country is instilling new confidence in the global community. And of course, the two leaders are going to engage in the bilateral delegation level talks in a few hours from now. What we are expecting is the signing of a few documents as well. And right now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting the Rosatom Pavilion in the Atom exhibition on display in Moscow, Russia. This is dedicated to the nuclear advancements of Russia. So PM Modi witnessing Russia's nuclear technology advancements, and what is expected is cooperation between India and Russia in the use of peaceful atom. We have told you earlier that this cooperation is time tested for both the countries, and India shares a very warm friendship going through decades between the two countries. Kudankulam nuclear power plant, India's largest nuclear power plant and the flagship project of Russian-Indian technology and energy cooperation, is a fine example of this cooperation. India was one of the first countries to realize the prospects of peaceful atom, and the Atomic Energy Commission of India was established back in 1948. So what we are expecting today is the 22nd India-Russia Annual Summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin are likely to discuss the further strengthening of bilateral ties between the two countries across various sectors. The key areas of focus are expected to include trade, energy, defense cooperation, boosting India's exports to Russia. And in his departure statement, Prime Minister Modi highlighted the advancements made in the special and privileged strategic partnership between India and Russia over the past decade. The special and privileged strategic partnership began between India and Russia and has advanced over the past 10 years in areas of energy, security, trade, investment, health, education, culture, tourism, and people-to-people exchanges. Definitely, global issues are also going to be on the agenda Last night, Vladimir Putin hosted a dinner for the visiting Prime Minister, and discussions have happened earlier as well on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has time and again asked Russia to solve this conflict through dialogue and diplomacy. So definitely during the day, global issues will also be discussed. And here right now, the tour of the Rosatom pavilion for the two leaders is being conducted by Rosatom Director General Alexei Likhachev. And Rosatom's CEO Alexei Likhachev said that his company are in discussion with Delhi to construct the 6 high-power nuclear units as part of a new project, as well as developing low-power nuclear power plants in India. In addition, in April 2024, India was provided with information on solutions in the field of floating nuclear power plants. So you can stay tuned to DD India as we update you on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's engagements in Moscow. What is expected further are the restricted level talks between the two leaders at Kremlin. Meanwhile, let's go back to the United States of America, where US President Joe Biden is set to hold his first face-to-face talks with Britain's newly elected Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the White House on Wednesday. Biden will also hold an event on Thursday with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the NATO summit, which is taking place this week in Washington.
Wednesday, the President will hold his first bilateral meeting with the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, here at the White House. The President will also meet with the 32 members of the alliance at the Convention Center. And then later that evening, he and Dr. Biden will host NATO leaders for a dinner again here at the White House. On Thursday morning, NATO will hold a meeting with the EU and with NATO's Indo-Pacific partners, that's Australia, Japan, the Republic of Korea, and New Zealand, to deepen our cooperation. And then on Thursday afternoon, there'll be a meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council, after which the President will host an event with President Zelensky and nearly 24 of our allies and partners who have signed bilateral security agreements with Ukraine, just as the President did, as you saw in Italy a week or so ago.
Now, in an update from Britain, following the Conservative Party's historic defeat in the general election, opposition leader Rishi Sunak has introduced his interim shadow cabinet. Chris Philip has been elected as the shadow leader of the House of Commons, taking over from Penny Mordaunt, who was one of the senior lawmakers to have lost her seats, while Jeremy Hunt continues with the finance brief, and former Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden becomes Deputy Leader of the Opposition. So the UK Parliament reconvenes on Tuesday for the first time since last week's election. The Labour Party won a landslide majority and will soon set out its legislative plans. DD India's Ollie Barrett reports from London.
What happens as Parliament reconvenes after the election is that both chambers of the Parliament gather in the House of Lords at first for what's called a Royal Commission from the King, which is effectively an order to hold a new Parliament. Then the House of Commons proceeds to elect a new Speaker for the upcoming Parliament. And then we also have oath-taking for members of the House of Lords, the Upper Chamber and the House of Commons as well through Tuesday and Wednesday. It's not till the 17th of July that we get the official state opening of Parliament. That's when you get the so-called King's Speech, which sets out the government's legislative agenda for the upcoming parliamentary session. The other thing that's going on this week, and has been for a couple of days and will continue for several more days, is the onboarding of hundreds of new MPs who are at Westminster for the first time ever. They get a buddy who tells them exactly how Parliament works, gets to show them round, tells them where they can find food and drink and all sorts of other secrets about life at Westminster. There are, as I say, hundreds of new MPs at Parliament this time around, partly because of the landslide victory for the Labour Party, which is now a Labour government, but also because there were dozens of MPs who stepped aside and didn't contest the last general election last week. So a busy day at Parliament ahead. Ollie Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
Still with Europe, a surprise result in France's parliamentary elections has kept the country waiting for a new government with no party securing a majority. It's a loss for President Macron's party, Renaissance, but also a loss for the predicted winner, the far-right National Rally. DD India's Stuart Smith has more from Paris.
The far-right National Rally Party says it was defeated by an unnatural political alliance, a bloc of centrists with a bloc of left-wingers working together to try to make sure that a far-right government didn't make it into power. That is what has happened, and it seems to have worked on Monday. No right-wing government for France, but also no potential for any other government. The left bloc and centre bloc that worked together in this election to make sure the far right did not make it into power are also diametrically opposed on so many issues. The left-wingers, for example, would entirely revoke the centrist policies related to tax reform that Emmanuel Macron has pushed through with his party over the last 7 years. So now coalition talks are beginning, but with no clear sense how on earth there can be a path here to shared government, something which is not normal in France, while the Olympics take place, an event of international importance, and while these coalition talks continue. The far right says it's not out. National Rally says this is just them getting ready for 2027 when they'll have a go at the presidential election, and indeed they doubled the number of seats despite the centrists and the left-wingers for working together to prevent their victory. So by no means has that party gone away, but in the meantime France is left without a government, and it does mean that there will be weeks and months of talks to try to create one. Stuart Smith in France, reporting for DD India.
So as the US President Joe Biden is going to host NATO summit to mark its 75th anniversary in Washington, D.C. from July 9th to 11th, a White House spokesperson said that the NATO members are assured of the leadership of Biden and his seriousness about the grouping.
I think the question presupposes the notion that they need to be reassured of American leadership and President Biden's commitment, and I don't believe that's the case. We're not picking up any signs of that from our allies at all, quite the contrary. The conversations that we're having with them in advance, they're excited about this summit, they're excited about the possibilities and the things that we're going to be doing together, specifically to help Ukraine.
The White House comes with a supporting statement for US President Joe Biden after reports surfaced about him suffering from the Parkinson's disease. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre stressed on Monday that Biden was not being treated for Parkinson's disease. Earlier, a report by the New York Times revealed that a doctor specializing in the illness visited the White House at least 8 times from August through March. Parkinson's is basically a disorder of the central nervous system that affects movement, often including tremors.
President being treated for Parkinson's? No. Is he being treated for Parkinson's? No, he's not. Is he taking medication for Parkinson's? No. So those are the things that I can give you full-blown answers on, but I'm not going to confirm a specialist, any specialist that comes to the White House.
So US President Joe Biden is under severe scrutiny over his physical and mental health issues. This is after his disastrous presidential debate with Republican rival Donald Trump. A growing number of Democrats in the US Congress are calling on Biden to end his re-election bid. Meanwhile, Biden, dismissing the concerns, has vowed to run in the race till the very end. He stood firm and told the congressional Democrats in a letter on Monday that he would continue his election bid. First Lady Dr. Jill Biden started off her campaign for her husband and Democrat Joe Biden on Monday in North Carolina, endorsing his second term. She declared that she is all in for her husband.
For all the talk out there about this race, Joe has made it clear that he's all in. Thank you. Thank you. That's the decision that he's made, and just as he has always supported my career, I am all in too. I know you are too, or you wouldn't be here today. And with 4 more years, Joe will continue to fight for you, the military community that we are humbled and proud to call our own.
Updates on the Israel-Hamas conflict now. Hamas chief on Monday said that Israel's latest operation in Gaza could jeopardize ceasefire talks. The Israeli army released a video on Monday showing ground forces operating in Gaza. The Israeli military said it had been mounting an operation against terror infrastructure in Gaza and that it had taken out of action more than 30 terrorists who posed a threat to Israeli troops. Israeli military later issued new evacuation orders for Gaza City, areas of Sabra Rimal, Tel Al-Hawa and the Raj, telling people to head to Deir al-Bala in central Gaza. Israel's latest retaliations come as Egypt, Qatar and the United States stepped up efforts to mediate a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Meanwhile, the United States on Monday said that senior U.S. officials are in Cairo for talks to achieve a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said that the talks have resumed, but gaps still remain between the two sides.
We have a team in Cairo right now that includes Brett McGurk and the director of the CIA. They're meeting with their Egyptian, Israeli, and Jordanian counterparts, and there'll be follow-on discussions after that over the next few days. Look, we've been working this very, very hard, and there are still some gaps that remain in the two sides and the positions. The president believes wholeheartedly that this ceasefire proposal that we are trying to get done will make a big difference in terms of not only temporarily ceasing hostilities, but potentially giving us an opening to end this conflict.
In related development, Israel's opposition leader Yair Lapid has promised to support Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Parliament. At a meeting of his parliamentary faction, Lapid reiterated his offer to provide Prime Minister Netanyahu a political safety net in order to advance a potential hostage deal, despite the opposition of the Premier's far-right allies. Lapid's pledge aims to ensure the release of Israeli hostages and maintain governmental stability, despite his political differences with Netanyahu. Head of the Labour Party, Yair Golan, also said that he would back Netanyahu on a deal to release the hostages. Some far-right partners in Netanyahu's coalition have said that they will quit if the conflict ends before Israel has eradicated Hamas and freed the hostages. Lapid's Yesh Atid party holds 24 seats in the Israeli parliament, a crucial number compared to the 13 seats of the far-right parties opposed to the ceasefire. And on to the Russia-Ukraine conflict now. On the 865th day of the attacks, Russia's Astrakhan and Volgograd airports have resumed flights after they had been closed due to a Ukrainian drone attack, as per the Russian Aviation Authority. Russia's air defense systems destroyed 38 drones that Ukraine had launched overnight on several Russian regions, Russia's defense ministry said earlier. Meanwhile, with the Kremlin saying on Tuesday that it would closely follow this week's NATO summit because the alliance had declared Moscow its enemy and sought to defeat Russia. You're with us on DD India News are still to come on the show. At least 5 army personnel martyred in a terrorist attack on an army convoy in North India's Jammu and Kashmir. The special investigation team probing the stampede in North India's Uttar Pradesh's Hathras arrests 6 officials for negligence. And a high tide alert in Mumbai, schools closed due to inundated roads.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Thank you for staying with us. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Updates from India now. President and Vice President have condemned the attack on Indian Army personnel in India's northern Jammu and Kashmir. President Draupadi Murmu has expressed her anguish in a post on social media platform X. I quote her here. The attack on a convoy of army personnel in Kathua district of Jammu and Kashmir by terrorists is a cowardly act that deserves condemnation and firm countermeasures. My sympathies are with the families of the brave hearts who laid down their lives in this ongoing war against terror in all its forms. I pray for the speedy recovery of those injured, unquote. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also expressed deep anguish over the loss of lives of Indian Army soldiers. The minister asserted that the armed forces are determined to usher in peace in the region. At least 5 army personnel were martyred in a terrorist attack on an army convoy in India's Jammu and Kashmir. The attack occurred on Monday afternoon when the convoy was on a bridge over Nala in the remote Barnota village in Kathua district. Security forces returned fire, but the terrorists fled into the nearby forest area. A search operation by security forces is underway in the Machedi area of Kathua district. And in India's Uttar Pradesh, the special investigation team probing the stampede in Hathras has recommended action against 6 officials for negligence in performing their duties, following which they have been suspended from their services. The committee's report has blamed the event organizers for inviting more people than permitted, not following conditions and causing chaos, leading to the tragic incident at a religious event in Hathras, Uttar Pradesh in India's north. And the India Meteorological Department has warned of heavy downpours during the day on Tuesday in Karnataka, Goa, Arunachal Pradesh and Maharashtra. The weathermen also issued a red alert for these states today. In addition to this, an orange alert is in place for India's northeastern states of Assam and Meghalaya. Heavy rain lashed several parts of India's western state of Maharashtra's Mumbai city Tuesday morning. India Meteorological Department has issued a high tide alert in Mumbai following incessant heavy rainfall. Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation has declared a holiday in all schools and colleges in its jurisdiction in view of the heavy rain warning in the region. The IMD has predicted heavy rainfall at isolated places in Mumbai till July the 12th. Meanwhile, the services of the Harbour Line track of Central Railway was operationalized at 4:30 in the morning Indian Standard Time after the water receded on Tuesday. Its services were suspended on a stretch on Monday night due to waterlogging on the tracks amid heavy rains. And India's benchmark equity indices opened Tuesday's trading session on a high. The Sensex was last up by 391 points at a whopping 80,351, and the Nifty 50 was up by 112 points to 24,433 a short while ago. Staying in the region, the Ministry of Economic Affairs over Taiwan has organized Taiwan Expo 2024 in New Delhi. The 3-day event is being held from 8th of July to 10th of July. The 3-day expo features world-class innovations and cutting-edge technologies from Taiwan spanning various sectors, and among the highlights is the Taiwan Excellence Pavilion, where 24 renowned brands are presenting their latest products and solutions. It stands as a testament to Taiwan's commitment to excellence and innovation, and also provides a platform to strengthen the enduring ties between India and Taiwan. And very quickly, let's bring you up to speed with the action from Euro 2024. The ongoing European Championship comes to its final stages as 3-time winner Spain will take on France in the semi-finals tonight in Munich. Both of the past 2 explosive tournament matches between Spain and France have distinctly felt like a battle of sorts for the very soul of football. And it will be no different when they meet tonight. However, goal-shy France will be looking to silence the critics as they have come under the fire from fans for a string of unimpressive performances, having reached the last 4 without scoring a single goal in open play. Their opponents Meanwhile, we'll hope to keep their impressive campaign going on even without